All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos. And tonight, I want to talk to you guys about the resurrection of boundaries and why is the Manosphere so popular. I got a few ideas on that topic, and I thought this was the perfect topic to address. Coming back from Montanica, those of you who were there, shout out to you. But those of you who were not aware, the annual Montanica event in Butte, Montana, with Father Deacon Ananias and the entire crew over at Holy Trinity Serbian Church in Butte. I got to say, it was a fabulous, fabulous event. I was able to meet Father Turbo. I was able to spend time with Bishop Maxime. I was able to spend more time with Father Russell there in Butte. And of course, Father Deacon. It's always a pleasure to be with Father Deacon, Dr. Ananias. And of course, then tons of people from right here and in our online community. So it was a great, fantastic trip. I just want to give a special shout out to everybody involved, especially Father Deacon, Dr. Ananias, for putting on the event. It went great this year. And everybody I was able to meet, both who came in previous years and who were new. And this is time to, before I left for Montanica, I actually went to an event that Jay Dyer was at, Jay and Jamie. I went with Rachel Wilson and Andrew Wilson and met them down in Nashville for the Liberty Fest event. It was it Freedom for a Cause or something like that? And it was put on by Courtney Turner. Some of you guys are going to be familiar with who Courtney Turner is. And so down there at the event, it was pretty much a libertarian-oriented event. Jay, I think he posted it on his YouTube channel, began his speech to a room full of libertarians and boomers and some millennials, some Gen Z, but mostly more boomer-tiered libertarians with his Matthew McConaughey song. That was hilarious to watch in person. That was quite funny. But while we were there that weekend, Andrew highlighted that, hey, you know what you need to do, man? You need to really start focusing on the Manosphere, and I can hook you up. And so he's like, I can hook you up with this debate with Alex PWF, with John Anthony Lifestyle. Apparently, he's in contact with Rollo Tomasi. And he's like, man, you just need to start going through and start hammering these sort of manosphere types, these red pill types, with really a sort of orthodox Christian perspective on what a man is and what a man's supposed to do in society. And he thinks that'd be great. One, they're not going to be on the philosophical level, but also just hammering and showing sort of their own liberal blue pill worldview. And that's what we're going to kind of get into today, is talking about like, what is masculinity? Why is the manosphere so popular? And I hope in the next few months that I can basically go on my own ortho crusade, if you will, with the manosphere. I didn't want to title the video my ortho crusade because it seems a bit obnoxious, and I didn't want to go that way. But in a real jest, I plan on hammering and going after. Now, I'm not going to make that the entirety of my content. Of course not. That'd be too low tier. It'd be too low IQ. It'd be kind of dumb. However, mixed in, I already kind of talk about masculinity quite frequently, but now we're going to really start to try to focus on debating many of these popular figures, if you will. So that's one of the goals moving forward. But you'll see me going on Jay Dyer, sometime this week, if not next week, and we're going to launch it by talking about what is the red pill. What is the red pill? And we did an open panel recently asking what is the red pill, and for the manosphere, the red pill really is getting back to Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male. It has to do with the gynocentric order of the world. Gynocentrism, meaning the world in a way revolves around women's needs, and this is disenfranchising men in the contemporary period, which I don't disagree with. However, that certainly seems to be a myopic, a limited perspective on what the red pill really is. As we talked about in that open panel stream, the red pill for some people was the Trump election. It was conservatism, conservative political values. It was the gynocentric worldview. It was the Fed Reserve. It had to do with Ron Paul. And that's kind of like the Freedom Fest thing down in Nashville, which was Courtney did a great job putting that on. But their prescriptions for the ills of America and the Western world, certainly, we need more liberty and more freedom, aren't exactly the same thing as my prognosis and prescription, which has to do with your own sin. It has to do with your relationship to God. It has to do with your own inability to live up to the person you're supposed to be. And that's what a high value man is. A high value man is a man who lives up to high values. But what are those values? And I think when we look at what the world offers us, it's mostly what it values. And so a high value man in the manosphere context, I would argue, is really characterized by the things that the world values. Money, you're going to buy your Ferrari so you can escape the matrix. That's sort of, I've been watching a little bit of the recent Andrew Tate thing with valuetainment, but it seems like he's trying to back off a little bit on that. But that was his whole thing, right? You got to make so much money so you can escape the matrix. But, is the matrix something that can be escaped through money? Or does the matrix actually have to do with the spiritual reality in which we live on this plane right here, right now? I mean, because the way they made their money was through the webcam service. And so is that a masculine way to approach the world? Is it masculine? Is it a high value man to sell sex to lesser men that you even mock and make fun of for their inability to control their own sexual desires, and then mock how they are so lonely that you then play them and lead them through, the messages that they think they're interacting with this girl on cam who's really your girlfriend, and maybe you have 2, 3, 4 of them. But then as they interact with them, really you're behind the keyboard and you're luring them in like a fisher into a net to be trapped and give you more and more money. Now, is that what a high value man is? Is that the thing in which we have to do to escape the matrix? It seems a bit contradictory. And so these are the types of things that I want to bring up today in regards to really my speech at Montanica, which was geared towards seek first the kingdom of God. That was the theme of Montanica's event this year. Seek first the kingdom of God. And my prescription for all the ills in the world directed towards men is seek first the kingdom of God. And that's going to reorient one's place in the world. And my speech for Montanica will be put up on the website here soon. And I also think for the YouTube members, for those of you who are YouTube members, I'm going to make that available for you guys. But if you are a member over at the website, which I would highly recommend, you will have access to my lecture that I just did over in Butte, Montana. And so let me share some of that. Let's just get some of this housekeeping out of the way while we're beginning here, and I can then dive into this topic full steam. First thing is, guys, I'm going to have a bit of a life update video over at the website for members. Also, you're going to have my Montanica speech, which you can get all 3 Montanica speeches plus my Trad Forum speech, the event with E. Michael Jones in 2020. All that's up at the website for members. So if you want to see any of that, you can do so with with a website membership, of which there's 3 tiers, 3 different types of membership. And for those who are premium members, we do have a meeting tomorrow night. So June 14th, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to be part of an exclusive, like-minded group of men and women who come together to share ideas privately, feel free to join the premium membership over at the website. Again, you can do so with the link posted right there. Also, we are back full swing into things, and so we are doing one-on-ones again. That will begin tomorrow. So anybody who has signed up for a one-on-one, I should have reached out to you to begin to schedule something. We already have a handful of people already on the schedule for tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be back to work on that. And also, if anybody would like to sponsor a stream, if you would like to sponsor a stream, a handful of people have reached out to me saying they would like to sponsor a stream, but they haven't purchased a sponsored stream. So please, if you have a topic you'd like for me to dive into, please sponsor a stream. I would love to do that. And also, if your stream is a video analysis, I will split my sponsored stream with BLA, Baselit Analyzer. I know he's a fan of doing that. So if you have a video, a movie you'd like for us to break down, you can do that as well. And he would be more than happy to join me. Okay, so now let's get back to the topic here. Is the resurrection of boundaries, and why is the manosphere so popular? Why is the manosphere so popular? I'd say one thing is that the manosphere, again, if you look at its history, it kind of begins with the pickup artistry of the late 90s and early 2000s. I even got caught up in that. Some of you may have read Neil Strauss's book, The Game, which had to do with his sort of initiation and his association with the pickup artists, people like Mystery. Some of you may remember some of that. And I think they had their own show on MTV, and it was about going out and doing cold approaches. You just cold approach women, you walk up to them. Their whole thing was peacocking, having something usually unique about yourself visually, negging women. Don't go up and immediately compliment a woman. You want to neg a woman. You want to say something critical. You want to make a joke at their expense, because that's going to put them off their put them on the back of their heels, make them a little bit unsure about you, and you begin to establish a sort of social dominance. This was very popular in regards to some of these pickup artists, and then creating, and they almost had scripts that you would go through in regards to engaging a woman to lure her into a sort of attraction towards you and then sleep with her. Okay. So that's kind of where the manosphere started. It began with PUA, pickup artists, and eventually evolved. You can point to, I would say, the other very important book for the manosphere was the Rational Male book by Rollo Tomassi, who is still a quite prominent figure in the whole manosphere community. And so Rollo Tomassi is still one who talks about the sexual dynamics of men and women, the sexual marketplace, how in which value amongst men and women is viewed, and all this different stuff. Hypergamy, this is a very big one in which they're trying to discuss. So I'm going to actually have an article which we're going to go through, which is about the teachings of Rollo Tomassi that he puts forth in the first book of the Rational Man. I think there's 4 of them now. I'm not entirely positive, but I do actually want to catch up on some of these in case I have the privilege of doing a debate with Rollo. I want to make sure I can quote his book accurately. But I would argue that the resurrection of boundaries is really the basis for why the manosphere is becoming so popular. What do I mean by that? Well, the manosphere, one is again, we talked about a little bit of the history here through the pickup artistry, through the rational male, but it ends up being a place in which men can talk about men's issues and men's struggles in the world. And it kind of then is an offshoot of, well, it develops, you could say, an offshoot, but it develops into what's called the red pill. So the red pill, again, according to Rollo Tomasi in his book, has to do with a recognition of the gynocentric world order, the gynocentrism. Now, I'm going to compare this to the phallogocentrism of a Christian worldview. You see, much of the manosphere talks about things that they're against. It's often defined by the things that they reject. Very little of it is described by the things that they promote. Um, and we're going to get into what exactly is a high value man within the manosphere and how that really contradicts the concepts of a high value man within a traditional Christian worldview. But I would say tolerance, boundaries, and degeneracy has been the main catalyst for the development of the manosphere. Now, the manosphere as a community itself, I think it wouldn't talk about itself in this way. This is a little bit of a more philosophical level. The manosphere is very utilitarian and pragmatic. So it approaches how to deal with the issues very differently. And it's certainly not interested in larger metaphysical analysis and transcendentals or even a transcendent perspective on these issues, meaning that, well, maybe all this stuff has to do with the spiritual reality. Of course, it doesn't really go there. It's really limited by the material, and its appeal is usually based in a sort of evolutionary psychology. But tolerance, the abundance and the overabundance of tolerance in the Western world has allowed for an absolute collapse in order. And this has led to, again, I always talk about boundary dissolution, and that the metaphor I use is that men are the castle walls, women and children are the jewels inside. When the men become weak, when the men don't stand for their boundaries, when the men don't have values that transcend the physical world, then they collapse and those boundaries and those walls get weak. And it makes sense, right? What makes a wall valuable and sturdy and strong is that it's built on a foundation. It's based, if you will, right? That gets back to the whole metaphor of our culture getting based. Are you based? But men have to be based in something to be a wall in which that will prevent the evil, which, again, looking at it from a spiritual level, the evil of the world is always trying to go after innocence, children, and women. And so the manosphere accurately highlights the value of female innocence. That is obviously described as virginity, purity, submissiveness, honesty, integrity. But then at the same time, the manosphere talks about sleeping with virgins and then mocks women for having body counts and mocks women for wanting to get married that aren't virgins. And yet the manosphere, on multiple occasions, I've seen these guys. Tristan Tate was one, but even Andrew Tate and not just the Tate brothers, but multiple of these sort of pickup artists, manosphere type guys that whether they rent their Ferraris or maybe they have real Ferraris or whatever. I saw I think it was a Russian guy. He's also part of this, bragging about how he went into the club and there was a chick and she had a fiance and you know what, sucks to be him. I took her back to the room and banged her. Tough, cold world out there. It's like, that's not what a high value man does. Bragging about how sexually promiscuous women are, and then bragging also about how many virgin girls you've slept with and took their virginity when you had no expectation of a long-term relationship. You had no expectation of marrying these girls. That doesn't make you high value. Because again, as my assessment, a high value man is a man who lives up to high values. And high values are never things that are in the world, these physical things. Okay. So tolerance, boundaries, and degeneracy has been a chaotic catalyst, a catalyst for chaos in our society. And this has then been, in turn, a catalyst for the masculine urge for order. And so I would argue the reason for the manosphere, at least in its contemporary form, I'm not talking about the Neil Strauss pickup artistry days. I'm talking about the more contemporary, the last 10 years, really the last 5 years, really post Donald Trump, post Jordan Peterson. The manosphere has really become a way in which men can talk about self-development, how to relate to sexual partners, women, and then how to put things back into order. Jordan Peterson's giving young men advice, you got to clean your room, bucko. And that's not bad advice. However, it goes further. Peterson wanted to talk about logos and speech and truth, but then doesn't want to believe in the literality of the incarnated God. That's part of where his message stopped, right? And so many of us continue to cross that bridge into the church, into the salvation, into the sanctuary for men, into a true patriarchy, right? Yeah, I want to ask many of these manosphere types, how many patriarchies are you a part of? What tradition are you a part of? What patriarchal lineage are you associated with? Because often you're going to see that there isn't one. These manosphere types are really the alpha male versions of the OnlyFans girls they hate. They're narcissistic, they're self-absorbed, they're materialistic, and they're hedonistic. All they care about is their own pleasure, whether that be, again, through the validation of their own ego and influence, whether that be the validation of sexual opportunity, or whether that be the validation of being able to drive your Ferrari or whatever car that you choose, your new Lambo, whatever car you choose to drive. The idea that you're going to escape the matrix through money, sex, and influence is ridiculous. That's what the matrix gives you. That doesn't make any sense. So all boundaries in our society are being eroded. And that's something I've talked about before. That's not a new idea for any of you guys. And I would say this is the chaos. This is what we're sensing. This is the angst that everybody can feel under the surface of culture, is that the boundaries between male and female, man and machine, man and animal, life and death, all these things are being subtly eroded to some degree. National borders, right? Ideologies and concepts. Everything that distinguishes one thing from another, it's slowly being eroded in a satanic henosis. Henosis is the Neoplatonic term for like mystical, pure unity back to the monad. And it is a monad, but it's an evil monad. It's a monad about, again, it's almost like Islam. And I would say Islam is actually tied to this monad, not only due to the paradigm in which they understand Allah, but also into the sense that it is a sort of globalist worldview. It's not about the maintaining of the one and the many, right? It's not about both and the orthodox framework, the orthodox paradigm. And so the Islam, I talked about this in Montanica, even in front of the bishop, is that I think Islam and magic are the two greatest threats to the church. It's not atheism. If people are still railing on about atheism, they're lost. Look, atheism is a problem, and atheism leads to nihilism, and atheism leads to a lack of purpose. But atheism isn't the biggest threat to Orthodox Christians today, especially to their own apostasy. The biggest threat to their apostasy is one, diving into the lure of self-divinization through magic, through the worship of magic and power. But also then, if you're a man, it's to this idea that Islam's so base and it's going to give you the things that the Western world has taken away from you. Not true. Not going to happen. But the premise, especially why Islam is becoming more prominent, is because it maintains boundaries. And I will give it that. Islam absolutely has done that to a better degree than the Western world. So male laziness, when in regard to the Western context, male laziness and our own sin, it's our own sin. That's the thing that the manosphere doesn't want to talk about, because that puts too much accountability on oneself. Part of the manosphere is constantly pointing out to the world why you're disenfranchised and why you should then give them another $49.99. Now, I don't disagree with many of the problems they point out in the world. However, my prescription is it can only come back to one thing, and that's yourself. And that's to your own choices you're making in your life, the own sinful temptations you're engaging with, the laziness which you have about yourself, the inability to develop, the ability to grow, the inability to gain skills. These are what define a man. Self-sacrifice, skills, work ethic, courage, honor. These things aren't actually things that you can touch. They're ideas, they're we would say uncreated energies that you embody. That's the difference between a more Christian perspective on this whole manosphere crap and the actual manosphere. So male laziness and our own sin has allowed this disgusting tolerance, the degeneracy, the dissolution of boundaries in our world, this is due to men becoming lazy and not upholding those values which keep evil at bay. Okay. And so for the manosphere, then you have a whole generation of young men, and I have stats here to show you guys that you look at suicide rates, right? Let's look at suicide rates right here. Suicide rates are off the charts, and you look at that you divide suicides between male and female, and up to 2021, which is at least a year after COVID, men are 80% of suicides. Males make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of the suicides. And so men's health, men's, and look at here. Look at the highest tiered people 85 and older have the highest rates of suicide. But you come down here, look how high it is for the young men. 25 to 34, men in the prime of their life, 19.5%. 19.5%, 18.1, 18.2. These would be, again, men through the prime of their life. So men's health, men's at least mental health, certainly isn't a great point right now in the Western world. There's an absolute increase in suicide rate. Men are the meaninglessness is growing, nihilism is growing. And also, rates of, adult male virginity. Now, again, we're Orthodox Christians, so we're not promoting premarital sex. Absolutely not. But we live in a secular culture in which people don't live that way. So I do find these statistics interesting. I saw something that highlighted that this number is from 2018, and that in 2022, the number was more around 38%. So it's about 10 to 12% more than this. Okay. So right now we're looking at 27% of young men are virgins, and this has to do with incel culture. Again, I'm trying to highlight, why is the manosphere so popular? Why is the manosphere the most popular thing you can talk about on the internet right now? Well, it has to do with the disenfranchisement of young men. Again, agreeing with Rollo, agreeing with the gynocentric worldview, but disagreeing that it's just some haphazard thing that's happened in the world. No, this has to do with an inversion of the phallocentric, the Christian logos-oriented worldview, the true paradigm, if you will, the true map of reality. And so you look at this, and incel culture is on the rise. Now you look at all these leftist sites, Caitlin Logan. I wonder what her thoughts are on feminism and Donald Trump. You can already guess. But incel culture is increasing. Should we be worried? And what can we do about it? Well, what can we do about it already answers if you should be worried, because you're insinuating you need to do something about it. However, I'm not going to go argue with this leftist woman here, but this is highlighting a real phenomenon. This is what I was trying to get across again at Montanica to the bishop, is that it's hard for people over 40 to really appreciate the disastrous state that young men are in right now. And even if they are Orthodox, even if they are Christian, why there's so much hopelessness, and why they're so angry, and why they're so upset with the world. That my point talking to clergy was that it's justified, and that we as the Orthodox Church need to recognize that and really just build a general conversation so that our priests, the men, the patriarchy, the spiritual fathers of our tradition can be aware of that. And then we can articulate that is a reality. So when the young men come to the church, they're coming to a place of refuge, the hospital. Christ is the savior of souls, right? He is the physician of souls. He is the healer, and the church has come to heal us. That's what the point of the church is. And so my point to the clergy is that we need to recognize the reality that young men are in, and we need to be able to express ourselves as a place in which they can take refuge and they can come, and because we would recognize their problems, right? So the manosphere, though, has created women to be the enemy. You listen to their rhetoric, and it's always at the expense of a woman that a man gains. Now, this certainly isn't a Christian worldview, because our point is that a woman is a helper to a man to fulfill higher things, higher callings to then reorient society back to God. So a woman, the way I would say an Orthodox Christian man or a Christian man, generally speaking, should go about dating is not to think that he needs to one up the woman or lure her into something, or that, as the Manosphere basically describes, if you sleep with her, well, now she's the whore, you won, awesome job. You added to her body count, she loses, you win. Because if you're a man and you have a high body count, well, then you're better than a woman that has a high body count because it's an inverse relationship. Well, that's kind of dumb thinking. That's kind of dumb thinking, because a man who can't have discipline regarding his own sexual temptations, that's not a high value man. That's a man that's easily led. That's a weak man. That's a man that probably has lesser, attributes such as courage. Because what is he willing to stand up for? Well, what are you willing to die for? I think this is a really important question that men need to ask themselves. The Manosphere, unfortunately, makes women to be the enemy, and it highlights the injustices of divorce in our court system. No doubt about it. No doubt about it that the court systems are totally disenfranchising men. It's ruining their lives. You're a man. Maybe you thought you were in love with the right woman. She becomes bored after 10 years. You've been working your butt off. You have children. You have a house. You're taking care of your business. You're doing the things you need to do. All of a sudden, she's bored. You're seemingly doing all the things that your Christian duty would ask of, yet the woman that you married decides, you know what? I think I'm gonna get out of here. I'm still 38. I'm still 40. I think I can still have a hot girl summer. I'm gonna have to ask for a divorce here. And so women do file 80% of the divorces. That's a fact. Now it ranges somewhere between low 70s to mid 80s, depending on the demographic you're talking about. But that's a real problem. Divorce in the court system is a real problem for men. I totally agree with the Manosphere on that. That doesn't mean you don't get married, right? See, their advice then is don't get married, bro. Like look at the divorce rates. That's dumb. Just date her. Just have her live it with you. What's the point? You see, what's the point of becoming a high value man? What's the point of having a relationship with a woman? What's the point of long-term relationships? It's for children. It's for family. It's for the production, the creative function of sex, the creativity of life itself. The ultimate creativity is the family. And so the Manosphere wants to talk about masculinity, yet at the same time doesn't want to address that the role of a man is to have a family, and that the ultimate, and this was true, this is a verbatim from Rollo Tomasi, that if you're really concerned with your lineage and having sons and children, that's 20th century thinking. What? 20th century thinking? It's 20th century thinking if you want to have male children and have a lineage. What? So 21st century thinking is to not have children, don't get married, and have a vasectomy? I'm not interested, bro. I'm not interested in that type of masculinity. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so the Manosphere accurately highlights the problems of the court system and divorce, but then incorrectly tells young men not to get married, don't have children, don't trust women. Women are the enemy. They're going to do everything they can to hurt you. Now, I'm also not saying that there aren't some women like that. Absolutely. But that's why, again, my argument is seek first the kingdom of God. And I have, again, my speech from Montanica on this topic will be up on the website once I get that. But if you're seeking first the kingdom of God, things will orient themselves, because you're not going to stand for a woman that has transgressive, progressive values. That's one of the problems that the Manosphere does accurately address, is the simps. You can't simp to a woman that crosses your boundaries. As I said, this is the resurrection of boundaries. That's what the Manosphere at a sort of ideological, philosophical level is doing. It's resurrecting the idea that we should have standards and boundaries that we don't let get crossed. Now it begins at a very rudimentary level regarding like sexual dynamics with women, and if she does this, do this, or text game and all this type of stuff. But what is really the phenomenon of the Manosphere is that it's an articulation of the resurrection of boundaries, which, again, I purposely said resurrection because it's ultimately defined in Jesus Christ, because he is the Logos. He is the Logos that orients the entirety of the world. So if you're directionless, seek first the kingdom of God. If you don't know your purpose, seek first the kingdom of God. If you're not sure if this woman's going to submit to you, seek first the kingdom of God, because all this stuff, the logos itself, gives us the orientation, defines us the boundaries that we have to defend, therefore gives the contours for what a man is, and allows us to better assess women who we are going to bring into our lives. So women are not the enemy, although there are a lot of problems with the women. I don't disagree with that. So another thing they're talking about is hypergamy. Women want the best option. Women always want the best option. Well, you know what? Hypergamy is not the worst thing in the world. If you're so worried about hypergamy and a woman choosing the best option, maybe you're not becoming the best man that you could be. Now, I'm not saying that some women don't take the hypergamy thing to an extreme. Absolutely. They absolutely do. That's why it's important to have the right traditional boundaries to analyze a woman in the first place. OnlyFans girls, egalitarianism, right? So egalitarianism, the whole equality movement, has to do with the dissolution of boundaries, the differentiation of boundaries between people being absolved, the dissolution of a hierarchy. Again, ask these manospheres type, what patriarchy are you a part of? What traditional male lineage are you associated with? I'm part of the Orthodox Church. I'm part of a tradition of men that first worship God. They're not part of one. They self-worship themselves. They're part of that feminine tradition of the Narcissus. They're looking at themselves in the water and worshiping their own image, worshiping their own ideas, worshiping their own concepts of masculinity, oftentimes which are totally hypocritical to the ways that they in turn live themselves. Like Fresh and Fit, the dude, he's on a sugar daddy site and he's mocking then sugar babies that come on, sugar girl, like sugar babies that come on his show, which again, they get the dumbest hoes that they can find. Same thing with the Whatever podcast. These women are dumb. This is not high quality content. This is not even a good representation of masculinity. Because really, if a man is truly masculine, he doesn't want to humiliate people, although to a degree it serves a purpose, right? It shows how absolutely backwards young women are right now. I mean, so it does serve a purpose. However, ultimately, again, women aren't the enemy. And the reason why I think the manosphere is so popular is because women follow men. And so all these women, be it Pearl or be it whatever, just women in general, they want to hear what men are talking about. And that's partly why the manosphere is so popular, is that everybody wants to hear what the men are talking about, because it's the only place that the men can really have their own voice. That's partly why it's so interesting. That's partly why it's so threatening, if you will, to the system, even though much of the prescriptions the manosphere offers is totally in line with the system, the matrix. Hold on, we got a few super chats that come in here. Shout out to Frankie D. Frankie D throws in a $4.99 super chat, says the manosphere heavily relies on evolutionary psychology. Yes, I highlighted that earlier. That's why they believe what they do about male-female sexual dynamics and competition. That's absolutely a fact. They are heavily relying on evolutionary psychology. And it's kind of a weak assessment, in my opinion. Frankie D throws in another super chat here and says, I wonder if you could reject the evolutionary aspect of the manosphere simply due to the fact for the last few thousand years, marriages were arranged, which means that there would be no cold approach genetics in the pool. Well, Frankie, I don't think that would totally hold up, because from the evolutionary perspective, arranged marriages doesn't totally solve the idea of survival of the fittest. So you could have arranged marriages by then the people that are the wealthiest in society and still maintain certain genetic categories. So just because they're arranged, it's, well, who's arranging it? Well, if it's wealthy families, more prominent families, I would say that these people, again, I don't even believe in macroevolution. So, but they would argue, I'm sure, that, yeah, arranged marriages work because wealthy families arranged marriages with other wealthy families. So other competent families arranged marriages with other competent families, something of that nature. But I do get your point with the cold approach, although, dating in its contemporary sense is a sort of mimicking of gay culture and bars. There was not the idea that we date now, that you go and you have a relationship with somebody to have fun, but you don't really commit and you engage in sex. That comes from gay bars. And I'm not kidding. You can look this up, challenge me if you like, but that comes from gay bars and gay culture. Guys, smash that like for everybody who's here. Please smash that like. I'd greatly appreciate that. So, femininity, then, generally speaking, again, we're talking about the manosphere criticizing women as the enemy. That femininity is associated with the things in which the manosphere is trying to tackle: chaos, boundary crossing, emotionalism. These are characteristics of femininity that, in its right context, are actually good things. They're actually good things. Um, but emotionalism, creativity, this type of thing. Creativity for what? Well, our world, the feminine imperative is getting so out of hand that you can just create your own gender. You can create your own identity. You can create things that are immutable. That's not creativity. Creativity is creating new works of art, creating new things based on the orientation of the logos, things that fit with that which is the order of the world, you see. But this sort of feminine imperative that creativity is now creating things that aren't actually can be created, like taking skin off a woman's forearm to create a fake penis. Yes, that is exactly what they're really doing. I'm not kidding. So the world has coddled female emotionalism. And that's partly what the gynocentric worldview that Rolo highlights, that I don't totally disagree with, what they're so upset about. They're so upset because the female emotionalism, a woman, right? Being a man is horrible, while anything a woman can choose is wonderful, right? So if you want to become a virtuous Christian religious man, that's horrible. You're not going to support pride. You're going to be bigoted. You're going to want a woman that stays at home. But then you choose any identity a woman could be: a OnlyFans girl, a prostitute, a porn star, a CEO, whatever. Choose a thing that a woman could be. That's wonderful. That's empowering. This is part of this gynocentric worldview. The fact that the world is now coddling female emotionalism, women in general, to the detriment of men. And so this is tied to, as I said, the rise in male virginity. That's a real thing. And this is leading to the incel culture, which, again, I'm not promoting premarital sex, but the incel is an outgrowth of the manosphere, because the manosphere kind of divides into like the red pill and the black pill. And in the black pill, you have then the MGTOW, the men going their own way, which don't want to co-inhabit with women and basically just want to use women for a sex object. And then, maybe you get her pregnant and have children, but yeah, don't marry her. Just let her live by herself with the baby and you go visit. That's MGTOW. This is ridiculous. This nothing about that is masculine. And unfortunately, this black pill MGTOW community is filled with incels, men who are disenfranchised sexually because women just aren't interested. Women just aren't interested in them. And so that's tied to something that I wanted to show. That is, why you might want to avoid online dating trap. In recent years, online dating has become the premier way couples meet, now having a market share of nearly 40%, according to a 2019 study. Post 2020, it's way up. It's way up from 40%. That's for sure. But what it finds is that, again, we don't need to go through this whole thing. We can if you guys want to. Super chat me if you'd like. But that the majority of men find the majority of women attractive. But the majority of women do not find the majority of men attractive. And so this is what it's talking about, why you might want to avoid the online dating trap, because basically, and this is something that the Manosphere, again, accurately talks about, is that, let's say 80% of women are actually pursuing and going after, let's say, 20%, 10% of the men, something of that nature. So a much smaller portion. So That is a fact. That is a fact. That's why you're totally disadvantaged as a man being on social online dating, whether you're good looking or not. And that's where then Andrew Tates of the world, what do they try to tell the young men? Well, that's why you need to take your Tinder photo with your Ferrari, demonstrate high value that you're in Miami, you're at these places of wealth and opulence, and you're doing things, maybe even girls on your arm, and therefore then you'll have more access to sexual opportunity. Again, high value men, it's really a utilitarianism for the access to sex. So the world has coddled female emotionalism, which then allows the women to overvalue themselves. This is true for social media, so a woman can post photos and get all the leverage, all the attention, all the time. Historically, that was the role of your man. Your man is the one who gives you your attention, because your attention as a woman, it needs to be tied to something that, actually cares for you. And so these women are getting their attention from, thumbnails and handles of people online. And so they're feeling validated by the attention, but that's not a one-to-one relation. That's not somebody who actually cares about you. And so these women get these attention on social media and they overvaluate themselves. Ugly women, I would say on average, is like, I see pretty decent looking guys and the women they're with are below average. And you're like, what's going on here? And it has to do with this total inflation of the way women view themselves, which is tied with online dating and social media and all that type of stuff. So this again ties into these tensions. So what is the point of becoming high value then for the manosphere? What is the point of being a high value man? Well, for them, it's utilitarian. The idea, it's a utility, the higher value. What is high value? If you ask the general manosphere. Now, there's recent a whole thing with Fresh and Fit, Sneeko, and Destiny were sort of mogging Rollo Tomasi, asking him, what is a high value man? What is a high value man? Exactly. Amptown one throws in a $2 and says it's called hoflation. Exactly. The hoflation. The idea that these hoes, these promiscuous women, are overvaluating themselves when it comes to the sexual marketplace or even their own looks, right? These women who may be busted in the face have like big breasts or a big butt or something, and they think they're a dime piece. And they think, again, by being sexually promiscuous or promoting their sexuality, that somehow they're really a catch. No, lady, like, you have no values. Actually, you're the opposite. You're the opposite of what a real high value man would want. And the manosphere is trying to talk a little bit about this, and that, again, the female version of high value has to do with purity and femininity and submissiveness and caringness and being kind. So yeah, hoflation is out of control. Women totally overvaluate themselves. I see this all the time. And yeah, it's a real problem. So then the remedy, according to the manosphere, is become a high value man. But what is a high value man according to the manosphere? Well, if you listen to, again, and it's a variety. It's a variety of people, right? But they would say, well, it has to do with money. For Kevin Samuels, you had to make over 600. I mean, you had to make six figures, so over $100,000 to be considered high value. Some would say, well, it's money, and then it's also your influence. So a high value man has power and influence. That power may be at your company, that may be at the whatever institution you work in, that could be social media, it could be anything in which you exert power and influence. So money, power, influence. And then the last thing what makes you high value is sexual availability, meaning that you have access to sex with various women. If not, you're spinning multiple plates. Therefore, you're in potentially sexual relationships with multiple women, but you're not being tied down to any one, right? You are becoming your own king, if you will. Frankie D throws in another super chat and says, the true MGTOW is a monk on Mount Athos, but they would more accurately be men going God's way. Absolutely appreciate that. And that's why, again, these people are not seeking the kingdom of God like a monk. And that's why there's no responsibility. What is the responsibility that the manosphere tries to lay at the feet of young men? Other than that, you don't make enough money and you don't have enough social status. And that's really not that important. The more important thing is, again, what I would say is that a high value man is a man that lives up to high values. I'm talking about, again, the uncreated energies of God. I'm talking about a man that is honorable, that is trustworthy, that pursues truth, a man that is strong, a man that is self-sacrificing, a man that works hard, a man that has purpose and direction. These aren't things you can touch. You see, I would argue that a high value man is actually pursuing things that are beyond the visible world in front of him. A high value man is pursuing non-visible things. A high value man is oriented toward things that are outside the context of his local situation. This is the difference between me and Rollo Tomasi. When pushed, Rollo Tomasi, you ask him, what is a high value man? Well, he says it depends on the context that you're in. A high value man could be the man with 4 wives. The high value man could be a man that, marries the trad girl or something. Well, no, because he doesn't have a metaphysical framework for objectivity. And therefore, what comes out is a sort of relativistic, subjectivistic approach to what is masculinity and what men should be. So for them, high value has to do with money, sex, and status. Where I argue a high value has to do with the values that you actually live up to. And that has a positive ripple effect in the people around you. Could be your wife, could be your children, could be your church, could be your community, could be your country. That is why masculinity is so important. The ripple effect of a high value man, the ripple effect of a good man, a man that lives based on quality values, is so impactful at large, at scale, that it shapes everything around it. That's what we do as men. But men then who are caught up in their own degeneracy, which I would say the majority of these manosphere types are, especially the pickup artistry. I mean, it's filled with these degenerates that are like, as Rachel Wilson said, it's the quack like a duck test. John Anthony West said, well, if it looks like a woman and it walks like a woman and it talks like a woman, well, it's a woman. No, bro, it's a dude with breast implants. And the fact that you sleep with it is disgusting. And the fact that you sleep with a man and then you're telling other men how to get women is disgusting. That's not high value. That's not cool. That's not masculine at all. Frankie D throws in another 99. Shout out to Frankie D for the love. And he says, these dudes are trying to climb a collapsing dominance hierarchy, and this system is rigged. Most men are going to have to be wages, and you aren't going to be driving a Lambo. Manosphere is a delusion. It's delusional. It is delusional. The manosphere is delusional. It demonstrates that basically the message of the manosphere is that only 20% of you are going to make it. You better become the top 20%. And that may or may not be the case to some degree within the secular world. However, it's more than that. These manosphere types are making men narcissistic, totally obsessed with their own pleasure, obsessed with their own pursuit of worldly things. This isn't something to be proud of, in my opinion. So yeah, the fact that in being a wagey, working a 9-to-5 is not a bad thing. I know sometimes the manosphere will talk about this, but man, if you're a man and you're living up to the highest of values and you're working a 9-to-5, that's nothing to be disrespected. That's that's honorable. And that's going to be the majority of us, right? The majority of men are not going to make it to the Lambo stage, and to present that as the form of masculinity is deceitful, it's dishonest, and it's destructive. And the idea that a man should only be focused on money, status, and sex is disgusting, because that is exactly why we live in the world that we live in, that all the boundaries have been transgressed. Manosphere is not telling men to uphold the boundaries that will revert society back to a more ordered state. A real high value man, as I said, lives up to the highest of values, and those are the uncreated energies of God. And he's part of a true patriarchy. We, as Orthodox Christians, are part of a true patriarchy. That's part of the appeal of Islam. Islam still has the patriarchy. Catholicism, it has a patriarchy, but it's on its last leg. It's definitely about to fall apart. That's for sure. So Catholicism, barely a patriarchy at this point. But where are the patriarchies in the world? Where can you point? Car lots. I think used car lots and selling cars is about one of the few places that men still dominate, like mechanics, working on engines, of all sorts, any type of engineering. I mean, these are like the last vestiges of the patriarchy, but in the secular context, you have women in there. Only, I would argue, the church, the Orthodox Church, has the true patriarchy, the patriarchy that goes all the way back to Abraham. I'm talking about the patriarchy, not a patriarchy, the patriarchy, the patriarchy. And so being a part of the church, I think, would be the ultimate way. But high value men are the men that, again, put these non-visible virtues above the visible context. The current state of the manosphere is that they create that which they complain about, right? How many of these men, as I talked about, brag about sleeping with virgin girls and then lambast women for having high body counts? Well, which one is it, bro? Which one is it? You want to make fun of women for having body counts, but then you want to sleep with pure virgin girls and mislead them and make them think something that isn't true through these pickup artistries or these scripts or these manipulation of perceived value and all this different stuff. That doesn't make you high value, man. That makes you a degenerate. Just like Justin Waller when he was confronted by Leela Rose, it makes you undisciplined, bro. That makes you unmasculine. If you can't control yourself, that's not something to be valued or presented as like a positive quality that of yourself that you just can't control. Man, I tried not to sleep with women, but I'm just not wired that way. Well, dude, you're a degenerate then, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I wouldn't want my son to be like you. Yeah, well, I make millions of dollars and, I travel all over the world. So, dude, the goal of a man is to make it to the kingdom. And the goal of a man is to make sure that he then creates spaces and provides opportunity for the men and children around him to make it to the kingdom. It's to be a role model, but of higher values, So the current state of the manosphere, it's a great business model, by the way. Create the thing that you complain about, so you'll always have something to complain about. You get men to pick up women and sleep with them, and then you complain that women let men pick them up and sleep with them. Perfect business model. However, it's not going to get men out of the nihilism and the problems that they're facing in the contemporary world. The red pill. So the current state of the manosphere has to do with the red pill. Now, their red pill is so limited. It's myopic. The red pill is the fact that we have a gynocentric worldview and that the dating, metrics and relationship between men and women is skewed. Yeah, facts. Of course. That's the case. It sure is. It's exactly what's going on. But the red pill is more than that, bro. If you don't get it about globalism, which some of these guys don't get, if you don't understand that there's a one world government coming, if you don't understand about digital currencies, if you don't understand about 5-minute, 15-minute cities, bro, just shut up about the fucking red pill, man. You don't even know what you're talking about. And the problems that are facing us are so much more severe than a man being upset because his girl broke up with him. That is something we all go through, and we need to deal with that accordingly. But it's more than that. Pardon my language, by the way. I shouldn't have dropped the F word there. But it gets me wound up when you listen to some of this stuff. So the red pill is very myopic in this manosphere thing. The ills of the world are limited to women. Like I said, they make women the enemy. That's kind of what it does, which is so myopic and so limited. And then it breaks into the black pill, which are the people who don't believe. They're basically the men who think they'll never get into the top 20%. There's no point of even trying. Maybe the top 20% of men are only in the top 20% due to their genetics, and therefore I have bad genetics. I can't do anything to get into that top 20%. And I would say that's a terrible way to look at it. God's providence, God created you. You are the way that you are, maybe for good or for ill. We all have our shortcomings to certain degrees, but somehow it's tied to your own salvation, and somehow it's tied to something that you need to learn. This breaking down between the red pill and the black pill, then you have the MGTOW underneath the black pill. This is men need hope. Men need opportunity. Men need something to look forward to. As I said in my speech in Montana, men are goal oriented. What is your goal? Your goal has to be the kingdom of God, which then gives order and structure to the rest of your life, to then how you find a woman, how you treat her, what you should be pursuing in your life, your purpose, your skill set, your service. How are you serving other people? These things are more important. So I would say that the current state of the manosphere is what we're seeing are alpha OnlyFans girls or degens. They're alpha OnlyFans degenerates. The point of masculinity is family. The point of masculinity is children. The point of masculinity is moving society in a more ordered and better way. That's the only thing that matters. And so these OnlyFans types are basically the male versions of the OnlyFans girls they bash. They're led by their own hedonism. So you could see that any of these guys talking about sex. I saw this black guy. He did an interview with Pearly Things, and he's one of these Manosphere content creators. And he's like, yeah, some of these, yeah, I guess. And she was like, well, what about what you say to the criticism of the Manosphere that you guys bash women for having body counts, yet then at the same time you coach young men to sleep with women, therefore giving the women higher body counts? Doesn't that seem like a hypocrisy? He's like, well, yeah, it may be hypocritical, but nobody's putting somebody's head, gun to their head. That's your worldview, bro? Like, dude, you're feminine. You're feminized. You can't be talking about men becoming men when your whole thing is just using women to, again, at the expense of women, men gain. This is part of the only manosphere mentality. And they become self-absorbed. Listen to these guys speak. They intellectualize basic things about male and female dynamics to a point where they think they're the most genius man in the world because they figured out, oh, women like men that are fit. Women like men that are focused more on their purpose than on the woman. Well, yeah, of course. Again, the Bible tells us these things. This isn't something that needs to be discovered and articulated ad nauseum. That's the problem with the manospheres. Many of these guys have no skills other than talking about manosphere topics. And it becomes a sort of like high school drama. Look at the content. Everything's a reaction video. Everything's talking about somebody else. It's just drama, 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 drama. That's not masculine at all. That's, again, more feminine. That's a feminine characteristic. And so these men, they become self-obsessed and narcissistic because they view themselves as the rescuer of men, right? That's a perfect Luciferian inversion of what Christ is. Christ is the rescuer of mankind. A man should be pointing other men to Christ. That's it. Because Christ the Logos is what gives order, and Christ the Logos is what saves, and Christ the Logos is what sheds light in the darkness. And so if you're in a dark place, you don't need to be listening to a man tell you to have a vasectomy, or that you need to do more cold approaches, make sure you're picking up girls, sleeping maybe with 2 or 3 a month, getting new women, you got to get those numbers up. That's what? No, that has nothing to do with true masculinity. And so then they want to say you're going to buy your way out of the matrix. And I get, like I said, according to what I saw from Andrew Tate in his latest interview with Valuetainment with Patrick Bet-David, it sounds like he's trying to pull back a little bit of that because of his Islamic reborn experience. But literally, the message was, you got to make so much money that you buy your way out of the matrix. No, bro. The matrix is a spiritual reality. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Bill Gates is not outside the matrix. Elon Musk is not outside the matrix. Yeah, he's outside. Okay, he gets to ride his private jet, doesn't have to put his mask on. If you think that's the limits of the matrix, bro, you have taken the blue pill, because the matrix has to do with your soul and making sure that you are going to not exist. You won't exist for eternity. It has to do with getting you attached to worldly things like money, like power and influence, like sex. And if you're addicted to these things, you're not somebody who can transcend those things. And if you can't transcend those things, then you're a poor man, not a rich man. And that was a great speech that at Montanica that even Father Turbo talked about. Father Turbo was talking about how, talking about a lot of things, but one of the things in particular was that, there's spiritual fathers that highlight that a man who has more things is attached to more things. therefore making him poorer in spirit. But a man who's not attached or is attached to less and less things, is a richer man because nothing can be taken from him. And so it has to do with the disposition of your heart. Obviously, orthodoxy wouldn't exist if everybody just gave all their money away. Nobody had families or money. I'm not claiming that. For those of you who choose to be monastic, that's great. But the man who's attached to the world is actually poorer in spirit. And so God can give us worldly things which are actually detrimental to us, depending on how we associate and use them. And so lastly, they become the women they criticize. If you think about some of these manosphere types, they're actually a male version of the female OnlyFans chick, a chick who's obsessed with herself, a chick who's selling her sexuality, or however you want to define the manosphere advice for selling yourself. Totally self-interested, self-narcissistic, totally interested in making more and more money at the expense of morality. OnlyFans girl, webcam business, doesn't matter what it is. And then, of course, only pursuing money. So not only pursuing money at the expense of morality, but then making money the priority of all things and worshiping mammon. And so it's ironic that many of these manosphere types become exactly the thing that they criticize. But I would say, again, why is the manosphere so popular? It has to do with the resurrection of boundaries. And that is really what masculinity is tied to. It has to do with boundaries and maintaining boundaries and defending boundaries of all sorts: moral, psychological, spiritual, literal, physical boundaries. Again, boundaries such as your own anus, right? The world's trying to get men to, oh no, it's okay to have a buddy who you make love with. No, it's not. No, it is not. That's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. But that's partly why they want to educate young boys in the grades of 1 through 3 about sodomy. So maybe because these kids are impressionable and young, maybe they'll do it to each other. And that is a transgression of boundary that can have absolutely detrimental consequences for the rest of their lives. Absolutely detrimental consequences. So these men, as I said, often become the women they criticize. And that's why the boundaries are the new frontier. The role of masculinity is to maintain boundaries. And the new frontier, what is the frontier? Courageous men always go to the frontier, the front lines. What is the front line of the global war? What is the front line of the frontier? Where's the wildest, most unexpected place you go? And that is the defending of traditional moral boundaries. That's my argument. That is the new frontier for men. If you really want a purpose, you really want to have a solid role in society, something that is, again, have a ripple effect on the people around you in your community, is make the defense of boundaries an important part of who you are as a man. That will begin to define you as a man. That will bring you closer to God as a man. And defending of those boundaries will begin to give contour to who you are to become as a man. You don't know what your purpose is. You don't know what your skill set is. You don't know what exactly you're supposed to do with your life. Defend the boundaries. Pray to God. And what will happen is God will begin to give contours to your life that are, again, defined by the boundaries. There are no boundaries. That's partly of why people don't know where they're at. There's no orientation. We orient ourselves in our relationship to God, the Logos. That's the ultimate source of orientation. It's the ultimate sense of order. That's what it means to be oriented. It means there's order. You're oriented towards the right direction. That's why we need to follow God. That's why God needs to be a priority in your life. And this has to do with the real spiritual war, the real spiritual matrix, which has to do with phallogocentrism, the central pillar of Christendom, that which has been passed down by God, the promise to Abraham, and the marginalization, the marginalism. Again, Jacques Derrida, when he talked about phallogocentrism, said the way that we undermine Christian civilization, the way that we destroy the West, is we take the marginalized and we push it towards the center. We make that the central focus. And we take the center, the phallogocentrism, that is male-oriented, logos-oriented, The middle path, the center path, we push that to the side. And that's exactly what you see in every commercial. That's why every commercial has marginalized people as the focal point. LGBTQ, interracial relationship, which I'm not totally against, right? God uses that all the time. But the fact that it's pushed on us to such a degree for the purposes of societal manipulation, that is a bit too far. And you see it's all tied to this feminizing, destructive worldview where it takes the marginal and makes it the center. And it takes the center, the nuclear Christian family, and it makes it the marginal. And it relegates it to the edges. And it makes life difficult for it to exist. That's exactly what we're in. That is the spiritual matrix. You really want to know what the matrix is? That's what the spiritual matrix is. And so women and children are now the most vulnerable people to the agenda. Who is there to protect them? Who is there to protect the women from the men in the female prisons? Who's there to protect the women in female sports? Who's there to protect the children who are being groomed? It's only traditional men. It's only men that defend the boundaries. That is the new frontier. That is the new opportunity. You don't have to go anywhere. That's the difference between the 21st century and the 20th and the 19th and the 18th century, is that the frontier or the new world, or it's not a place. It's where you are right now. It's where you are right now. And it's defending that which is true, good, and beautiful. And it may take your life, bro. They may kill you for it. But what else is the option? What else are you going to do? What else is the point of being a man? A man who ran away from the battlefield was always a coward. A man who decided that I was going to die on the battlefield, that was a man of courage. That was a man of inspiration. That was a high-value man. And history is all about high-value men, not men that were obsessed with money, not men that are obsessed with power, and not men that are obsessed with sex, but men that are obsessed with being the best versions of themselves in the eyes of God. That is what's important, and that's what a man is. And that's again why the boundaries are the frontier. Men seeking first the kingdom are the force that maintains sanity in the world. There will be no sanity in the world. You see all these Muslim apologists arguing, well, it's okay, if she's 8 but she's almost at her period, it's okay to marry her. It's okay to have sex with her. No. Islam is not going to be a fight against pedophilia. It may be a fight against the Western LGBTQ stuff and transgenderism, even though Iran is the second country that has the highest state-sanctioned transgender surgeries, because it basically says, oh, you're a man, you think you want to be a woman? Well, shut up about it. Go get the surgery and don't let anybody know there's any difference. Go to East Asia. I think Thailand's number 1 in the world, but Islam deals with a lot of its own inner degeneracy as well. So seek first the kingdom of God. The boundaries are the new frontier, and upholding traditional values is your opportunity. It's an opportunity to butt up against that which is the walls of society, right? Men are always looking, strong, courageous men are always looking for what is the edge. What is the edge of entrepreneurial business excellence? What is the edge of the frontier? Oh, the 13 colonies, I'm going to move into a new territory. I'm going to go to Tennessee. I'm going to move west. I'm going to go to the Mountain West. I was just in Montana. And again, they still have that rugged frontier spirit. This is an opportunity. You're stuck in a city. You're stuck wherever you're at in your life, wherever you're at in the world. Right now is an opportunity to figure out who you are, the defining of your life, the defining of your purposes, the defining of your masculinity, by making the boundaries of a traditional worldview the frontier in which you are going to fight against. And so that's kind of my thoughts on all that. I do have an article that I want to get to real quick by actually Rollo Tomasi. I want to read to you guys some of his thoughts on the book summary of A Rational Male. And so we're going to go through here and see, like, what is it that we agree with? What is it that we disagree with? Where do we part ways with the Rollo Tomasis of the world? So let me answer a few super chats before we dive into that. Dr. Vagisil threw in $1 and says, Father Turbo's Montanica talk addresses true masculinity because if we don't exemplify God's love, how can we establish brotherhood, which leads to isolation, which is poverty, seeing adversity as a blessing so we never get discouraged. Amen to that. Amen to that. Next one by Dr. Vagisil says, Red Pill tries to help men's lust and sensual desires, but orthodoxy addresses a man's heart, because if his heart is holy, he will do holy things, and women will hold him in such high regard that the muscled up rich guys with body counts will be spiteful. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Vagisil, for that support. Okay, let's dive a little bit into this article here and read a little bit. And so you guys tell me what your thoughts are. Smash that like for everybody who's still here, and if you you want to show some love, shout out to Father Deacon, Ananias, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias. What a wonderful Montanica event! Thank you so much, brother, for having me on. I really appreciate it. He says, blessings, everyone. Just to let everyone know, Patrick was awesome at the Orthodox Montanica. It was so much fun. Shout out to Patristic Faith. Make sure you go support Patristic Faith. And you guys really missed out this year. Again, if you weren't there for Montanica, Bishop Maxime, Father Turbo, Mother Nectaria, again, being able to meet Father Russell. If you hadn't, Father Russell and his wife Sue are absolutely gorgeous people. And then, of course, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, his lovely wife, and myself, all presenters there at the event. So, anyway, shout out to you, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias. Thank you so much for inviting me again. I feel privileged to be part of such a great, spiritually uplifting and powerful event. So shout out to all the men and women who joined that I was able to talk to and spend time with. All right, so let's read this. The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi. This is the handbook. This is the Manosphere handbook. And Rollo Tomasi is, as I told you previously, is considered the godfather of the Manosphere. He is the godfather of the Manosphere and the Red Pill. Okay, so here, let's learn a little bit about the Red Pill. The basics. One-itis. One-itis is an unhealthy romantic obsession with a single person, usually accompanied by unreciprocated affection and completely unrealistic idealization of that said person. There is no one. There are some good ones, there are some bad ones, but there is no one. In any relationship, the person with the most power is the one who needs the other the least. Real power is the degree to which a person has control over their own circumstances. Real power is the degree to which we actually control the directions of our lives. Okay. Oh, yeah. Let me share this. Father Deacon, absolutely. He says, we were all much closer to heaven because of everyone and everything that happened at the conference. Yes, it was phenomenal. It was really, really good stuff. Again, shout out to you and thank you for the event. And thank you for the invite, brother. I feel privileged to be a part of all 3 years. So he's talking about one-eyed, which is a real problem, guys. I've talked to some ortho guys, and they're like, "Oh man, there's this really cute girl in my church, and I was thinking about it, and I think if I go up to her, I'll talk to her, and then I'll do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then she'll marry me, and then we'll have children, and then we'll live here, and I'll buy." It's like, bro, chill, slow the roll, bro. Like again, you're living too much in your head. You got to get out of that because it's only a place of disappointment. If you constantly create idealistic scenarios, life never goes idealistically. So try to make sure you're more realistic, you're more real in the world, and move about that way. So if there is a cute girl at your parish, go talk to her. Go ask her how she's doing. Make conversation with her. Do not fall victim to a series of obsessive fantasies that then are going to probably disenfranchise you because you'll be too obsessed with the ideals that you've constructed. So I agree with him here. Whether in a monogamous marriage, LTR or a one-night stand, strive for genuine desire in your relationships. LTR, long distance relationships, playing friends. Okay. I guess this is some of the stuff. So, I don't know what an LTR is. Women never want full disclosure. Nothing is more self-satisfying for a woman that to think she's figured a man out based solely on her mythical feminine intuition. Rejection is better than regret. 90% of dilemmas average frustrated chump find themselves in, and a majority of men's concerns with the opposite sex find their root in the methods and means they use to reduce their exposure to female rejection. These are buffers meant to reduce potential for the rejection of intimacy. Okay, so what are ways in which men try to avoid intimacy? Long distance relationships, playing friends, email, IMs, and text, Facebook and online dating, objectification of gender, idealization of gender, scarcity mentality, older women, younger women. Well, so the only what older women, younger women. Well, which one is it? Which one is it? Like, so you're not rejecting intimacy if she's your age. That's retarded. That's dumb. Leagues and pornography. Well, pornography is definitely a way in which people avoid. You are not alpha because of your achievements. You have your achievements because you are alpha. You possess a mindset. You either had to develop it or it came naturally to you. Alpha behaviors are manifestations of an alpha mindset. To be alpha implies that you necessarily rise above a certain degree of common mediocrity, depending upon the context. LTR is long-term relationship. Got it. Thank you. Plate theory. So this is about spinning plates, as I talked about. So, okay, one-itis. I don't disagree with that. That men get too obsessed with one person. I would say that's true. We see it in the Orthodox sphere. We see it with Orthodox men. They get obsessed with one girl at the parish and come up with all these fantasies. That is true. Men are then avoiding intimacy with women. That is true. And they're dealing with the fact that they don't want to deal with rejection by these things. Now, I disagree with some of them, like long distance relationships, not necessarily a rejection of intimacy. That just may be the person that you find. I found my wife through a long distance relationship. I didn't want a long distance relationship. I wanted an immediate relationship, but that's not what God gave me. But pornography, absolutely. Pornography, absolutely. So, okay, let's move to the next one called plate theory. So here's Rollo Tomasi's theory on plate theory. When a man spins more plates, women are plates, by the way, when he has irons in the fire, when he is pursuing multiple women simultaneously, when he has options equally worth exploring, a man will have a natural subconscious understanding that if one prospect does not expand, others very well may. Spinning more plates allows you more opportunities to select from the largest pool of prospective choices and date them or drop them as you see fit. This has two benefits. First, it serves as valuable, though non-committed experience for learning what a man requires for his own personal satisfaction. Secondly, opportunity and options make the man the prize. Now, for an Orthodox person, if you're an Orthodox man, do not be dating multiple women, meaning any of the women think that you're exclusive per se. Now, if you are just in the messaging phase or you're talking to a girl, you can certainly talk to multiple girls at the same time. If any of those women think that you are in a relationship, it would be sinful then to continue to talk to another woman romantically. So I would disagree with necessarily spinning more plates to the context of like you're having sex. Obviously, I'm not promoting premarital sex, but I would be very, very cautious as a Christian man to just be spinning plates, quote unquote, and luring women into the idea that you're in a relationship. However, the idea of keeping an abundant mentality, this I actually do support as an Orthodox Christian, is that you should not have a pessimistic or just a mindset full of despair. Despair is a sin, first of all. And we can't put too much pressure on one chick. So if you finally got a date and you're going out with a girl, relax. She's probably not the one. If she is, God will make it abundantly clear that she's the one. That's my experience. And so keep a positive, abundant mentality, and don't settle. So don't be a simp. And I think that's really what this is getting to is you don't have to spin multiple plates. You don't have to be dating multiple women, but don't fall obsessive about one woman and be totally left in the dust. You got to be realistic about the opportunities, and you need to become more self-aware. Women would rather share a high-value man that be saddled with a faithful loser. That's not necessarily true. Again, these are these grandiose general claims that aren't really true. Most women do not want to be with a man that has multiple women. And the women that typically do aren't the virtuous women that we would want as Orthodox Christians. And two, it's a sin as a man, even if you are adulterous. Okay. So I get it. Yes, sexuality is a little bit different. A man can have sex and it doesn't affect him or the partner the same way that a woman does. A woman, every time she has sex, she takes, let's say, she's affected more by it. But most women do not want to be with a man who's sleeping with multiple other women. Even though, yes, the sexuality is a little bit different between men and women. Women communicate covertly with gesture, with looks, with veiled meanings. Yes, you have to communicate your intent to be non-exclusive covertly. Never overly tell a woman you've got other plates than her spinning. Allow her to discover this by your mannerisms, your behaviors, and definitely by your availability to her. Confidence derived from the options of non-exclusive women in hand and from having successfully generated those options in the past. A truly powerful man jealously guards his most precious resource, his independence and his ability to maneuver. In other words, his options and his ability to exercise them. So again, what do we see? A high value man is a consumer. A high value man is a consumer, if you will. So it's all about consuming the right women. It's consuming the things that are appropriate to you. That's the whole point. True power isn't controlling others, but the degree to which you can control the course of your own life and your own choices. I would agree with that. Of course, that then ties to sin, which they would reject. Regardless, whatever your reasons, women should only ever be complement to a man's life, never the focus of it. I can agree to that to some degree as well. My prescription would tell men to find the purpose and skill set that God has for you before focusing on a woman, because it's that purpose and skill set that's going to provide for that woman. Okay. So monogamy is you cannot help anyone until you first helped yourself. That's true as well. Monogamy is a dictate of the feminine imperative. It is the social contract that the feminine ultimately needs in order to quell a constant desire for security in a very chaotic world. All women are sexual. You just need to be the right guy at the right time for the job. Okay. Nothing serves a man better than having 3 or 4 women competing for his exclusive attention and fostering in them that feminine competitive anxiety in a subtle and covert a way as possible. I mean, I'm not going to disagree that if a woman really likes you and she thinks that you're with other men, she's probably going to get jealous, but I don't think that's the best way to finding a wife, right? The point for me as an Orthodox Christian is to find a wife, not some girl that can get jealous and we can have sex when I want her to. Yeah, monogamy. Yeah, let me go back to that one. Monogamy is a dictate to the feminine imperative. No, it's not. Monogamy is actually ordained by God. Monogamy is the correct way in which our sexual relationships should be ordered so that we can create strong nuclear families, because the reason why men and women get together is for kids. It's not to spin plates, have sex, and have fun. And that's basically what, again, we're seeing here. What's the point of a man? Well, you get money, you get status, and you get sex. Why? To keep your freedom and keep your to keep your what did he say? Your independence and your ability to maneuver. No, bro. Plugged in. Plugged in. Women have boyfriends and girlfriends. If you're not effing her, you're her girlfriend. A man's default response should always be to excuse him from the let's just be friends situation. Long distance relationships are not relationships. Guys cling to LDRs because they've yet to learn that rejection is better than regret. The savior schema, the beta male expectations of reciprocation, of intimacy for female problems solved. Man and women cannot be friends in a way or degree that most people perceive same-sex friendship to be. Now, I agree with that. I actually agree with that part. I'm very skeptical of male-female friendly relationships. So, is my wife going to have like a bunch of like male friends she hangs out with? Of course not. And to the same degree, why would I need to be around women, right? if, why would I need a bunch of female friends? What exactly can they offer me? And they're going to help me talk about philosophy, my business, making money, going to the next level. Well, I mean, what exactly? The only thing is, if they're the wife of my friend, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense why I'd be friends. So in my mind, I only need to be friends with women that are wives of my friends. Yeah, of course, there's going to be friendly relationships with women, but not in the same degree that the world tries. Oh no, it's okay. We're just friends, and of course, that sexual tension, which the Manosphere talks about, is continually under, just under the surface there, the sexual tension. So, do men and women need to be friends? No, my wife does not need to be friends with a bunch of men or have any men that she hangs out with by themselves. And rightfully so. If I'm a married man, there doesn't need to be female friends that we hang out with privately. There just doesn't need to be. Part of being alpha is your facility with male interactions. All your friends are women. If all your friends are women, this calls your alpha creed into question for a woman. Well, what man only has female friends? That's weird. And yes, I think that men need to have strong male friendship. I think that's a huge part of being a man. Unplugging. The least attractive thing to most women is a man who is willing to compromise any part of his identity to placate to her. That's partly true. Much less a wholesale selling out of it. That is true, guys. Do not sell yourself out for a woman. Do not change your life for a woman. Do not change everything you do for a woman. That is a terrible move. Your mission, your purpose, and your skill set should be the driving factor in your life. No woman, until she's your wife, should have any sort of priority over that. And even then, the working in a way is a way to help provide for your family. Do not let any woman dictate or change the way you live your life, change your location where you live. No, they need to come to you because, again, your purpose has to be precedent if you're going to be the man of your family. So to that degree, I agree with them. Women are naturally attracted to that masculine independence as it represents a very strong cue for security and the potential to provide that security to her. When you alter yourself or have your personality altered by an outside force, this is a threat to predictability. So the logical counter is for others to attempt to put us back in our place. The man you wish to become requires you to take action. True. The goalposts for your own satisfaction will always keep moving away from you, and that's a good thing. This is what inspires us to grow and mature and to develop the capacity to overcome challenges. However, all that requires action on your part. No, the goal is not to pursue goalposts for your own satisfaction. The goal is to pursue God, and that he will give you, but that theotic journey, theosis, becoming God's by grace, by engaging with the uncreated energies, that is an eternal process. If you make it to the kingdom, you're still participating in theosis. You're still becoming more like God. So the goalposts in that way are always moving. You can never be God, but we can, by the grace of God, become like God. That should be your goalpost. And that will then orient everything around you. You will be based and red pilled and all this different stuff if God is the primary focus of your life. Women should only ever be complement to a man's life, never the focus of it. I to some degree, I really agree with this one. Men should be sexually, emotionally, or relationally non-exclusive until age 30. I don't know about that. I think getting married young is a good thing, but this is a minimal suggestion. I think 35 even serve better for men. The importance being that as a man ages and matures in his career, his ambitions and passions, his personality, his ability to better judge character, his overall understanding and behavior of motivations, etc., it becomes more valuable to the most desirable women and therefore enjoys better opportunity in this respect. Women's sexual value decreases as they age, and it's the point the balance tips into the maturing man's favor. Women want their men. Women want a man who other men want to be and other women want to be with. Our great danger in this life is not that we aim too high and fail, but that we aim too low and succeed. Okay. Sounds like, again, something from some self-help book. All right, let's hurry and get through this. This is going slower than I thought. Game. What is game for Rollo Tomasi? Again, this is the handbook of the Manosphere. At its root level, game is a series of behavioral modifications to life skills based on psychological and sociological principles to facilitate intersexual relations between genders. Women would rather share a successful man that be attached to a faithful loser. Peak years for women's sexual marketplace value tops out around 23 years old. Fertility, desirability, and sexual availability, and really overall potential for male arousal and attention reach an apex between 22 to 24 years of age. By by 36, the average man has reached his own relative sexual marketplace apex, value apex. It's at this phase that his sexual, social, professional appeal has reached maturity, assuming he's maximized as much as his potential as possible. It's at that stage that women's hypergamous directives will find him the most acceptable for her long-term investment. He's young enough to retain his physique and better part, but old enough to have attained social and professional maturity. Nothing is more threatening yet simultaneously attractive to a woman than a man who is aware of his own value to women. You are who you believe you are, and you are who she perceives you to be. We can alter our own personalities and have them altered by our conditions or any combination of the two, but to suggest that personality is static is a falsehood. The guy who leans even marginally to the jerk side of the spectrum becomes at least notable, at best attractive, simply by disassociation from the masses of the nice guys. Now, I will say disagreeability is tied, generally speaking, to levels of testosterone. And so I am a nice guy, but also disagreeable. So you can be very nice, but if they cross your boundaries or violate your principles, you must be incredibly up forward and straight with that. And that is a form of disagreeability. It's far easier to believe that the world should change for you than to accept the truth that you need to improve yourself to get things you want. It's the lazy man's path to disqualify and cheapen things that he desperately wants, but lacks the motivation to change himself to get it. Beta man fails to understand that the opposite attract, and barring the notable expectations, most women don't want to marry other women, least of all a carbon copy of themselves. Betas tend to stick with what worked for them, that was reinforced for them in the past. Comfort and trust are comfort and trust are post-orgasm conditions. Okay. Anxiety, arousal, and sexual urgency are pre-orgasm conditions, and both have their unique hormonal signatures. Communication. Okay, guys, for anybody tuning in here, this is not my opinion, but what Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male. This is summing up his book, The Rational Male, in the handbook of the Manosphere. So his section on communication. When a woman wants to F you, she'll find a way to F you. If she's fluctuating between being into you and not, put her away for a while and spin other plates. We get frustrated because women communicate differently than we do. Women communicate covertly. Men communicate overtly. Men convey information. Women convey feeling and relating information. Men prioritize context. Women prioritize context. Women want men to just get it. Women despise a man who needs to be told to be dominant, told to be confident, told to be anything they have on their list of prerequisites for their intimacy. Overtly relating this to a guy entirely defeats his credibility as a genuine dominant male. Communicate with your behavior. Never overtly tell a woman anything. Allow her to come to the conclusions you intend. Her imagination is the best tool in your game toolbox. Learn how to use it. Women never want full disclosure. Okay. Now, I get what he's going with there. You definitely want to be a traditional masculine dominant guy. I would advise in regards to communication that you don't give a woman more attention than they give you. If you're texting back with a woman and she leaves you on red, you leave her on red. If she never messages you back, good. If she messages you back, you leave her on red for a while. Don't respond back immediately. There is a tit for tat you do with women, and that's a way to show that you're not obsessive, right? Again, I think no woman, I'm even talking about orthodox women, don't want an obsessive man. So if you're messaging with her and she seems like she's, if she's only sending you short messages, you only send short messages. If she starts sending you longer messages, then you can send longer messages. That's not a way of playing her. That's not a pickup artist thing. That's just a way to that make sure that both both parties feel like they're on the same page and that not one is overly interested in the other. You'd never want to be a guy that a woman feels is you're more way interested in her than she is into you. That's never a good dynamic. So if a woman leaves you on red, you leave her on red. If she sends you a short message, you respond with a short message. You do that until she starts asking you more questions, more intimate questions, and you can dive into more deeper, complex answers. And that will be a point of connection. But if you do it too quickly, or if you start going on about the energy essence distinction or Christian theology, bro, stop. A woman is not interested in that. Social conventions. Okay. Individually, we are only as superficial as our own self perceptions allow, but the shallow effect is a useful convention so long as it keeps men doubting their ingenuousness and their self validity in exchange for women's intimacy. Selection, position, ensuring methodologies revolve around for fomenting the scarcity mentality in men. If the value can be inflated, the value can be increased, thus ensuring controlling frame. Escape clause. Conventions always offer an out to a woman and absolve her of or dramatically reduce her responsibility of personal accountability by means of social reinforcement. Sexual competition sabotage is the reputation destroyer, and it's easy to observe this in the field. When women employ gossip, it comes natural since it is an emotional form of communication. But the purpose of it is meant to disqualify a potential sexual competitor. The function behind gender role redefinition could be promoting androgyny as an idealized state or a power struggle to redefine masculine and feminine attributes, or even to ensure women as the primary selectors in mating. The term quality woman is a misnomer. Guys tend to apply this term at their leisure, not so much to define what they like in a woman, which is actually an idealization, but rather to exclude women whom with they really have no chance in the first place, or mistakenly apply too much effort and too much focus only to be rebuffed. Now, I disagree with this. If we're Orthodox men, we should be focused on specifically traditional women, genuine quality Christian women. The most effective social conventions are ones in which the subject willingly sublimates his own interest, discourages questioning it, and predisposes that person on encourage and reinforce the conventions with others. This is the essence of the matrix. Anything can become normal. Okay. Here we get into hypergamy, iron rules, mythology, and we're done. Okay. Hypergamy. So this is a big one. This is what all the people complain about. Female hypergamy. Hypergamy is oh, we got a few super chats here. Let me address these real quick. Shout out to everybody who threw in a super chat. We got one from Sam Vagyok. Vagyok throws in $10. Shout out to Sam. And he says, finally caught a live stream. You have been a huge part in my journey into orthodoxy. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you so much, Sam. Glory to God if I've helped in any way. Glory to God. Don't thank me. That's just the Lord's providence. We're just all on the same team trying to worship the same God, and that's how it falls. So thank you so much, Sam. I'm truly humbled if I've helped in any way. Glory to God for that. But thank you so much for the $10. And the next one came in from Gen Z Philosophy, throws in $5 and says, Keith Woods just did a good podcast with Ricardo Duchesne on Western civilization. Despite being non-Christian and having good things to say about Indo-European paganism, even Dr. Duchesne says that Christianity instilling monogamy was a great thing for Western civ. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who would disagree with monogamy being a huge part in which created a stable society in the West is an idiot, because part of the social turmoil of young men not having brides has always been a point of tension in which young men create chaos. So the more men that are with women, and that's kind of what we're seeing with the progressivism, right? So the average female now has like pink hair, purple hair, and the average male that she would have been with is probably an incel. And so they're not getting together, where historically they would have been married. She would have been giving birth to children and that type of thing. So Thank you so much, guys, for the super chats. Anyways, back to hypergamy. Hypergamy, the social constructs which tell her to expect a man's sacrifice, which normalizes his martyrdom, have evolved to better dissociate her own investment in her biological imperatives, i.e., hypergamy. Evolution has prepared her socially and psychologically for his sacrifice and readies her to move to a better provisioning should one present itself in her surroundings. Likewise, men putting themselves in harm's way is rooted in our competing for resources, in this case, breeding rights. Over the course of a woman's life, the priorities and criteria she holds for a suitable mate fluctuate in response to the conditions she finds herself in. The criterion for short term coupling are much easier to demand when a woman is in her peak fertility phase of life and thus places these prerequisites above what she would find most desirable for a long term pairing. The most valuable bit of wisdom you can carry into a monogamy of your own decision and your own frame is to understand the sexual pluralism in women accept hypergamy as a woman's operative state at all times. The phase at which men are just becoming aware of their true long-term value to women, usually around the age of 30, is almost exactly the phase in which women hope to press men unaware of their sexual marketplace value into their long-term provisioning schema. No man in the history of humanity has ever fully or accurately vetted any woman he married. No man can ever accurately determine how the love of his life will change over the course of that lifetime. It is a far healthier approach to accept the laws of power, the laws of game, red pill awareness, hypergamy, etc., and fashion of life around and understanding of them than to convince oneself that they are an exception to them. Don't wish things were easier, wish you were better. Well, I can agree to some. I can probably get on that train a little bit. Iron rules. One, frame is everything. Always be aware of the subconscious balance of whose frame in which you are operating. Always control the frame. Best revisit, giving the impression that you are. And I would agree with this. This is huge for Orthodox men. You got to have a purpose. You got to have a thing going on in your life. That's your frame. She's coming onto your ship. You got to be a shipbuilder in your life, and she chooses to be part of your ship. That is the game. In order to establish a healthy male frame, the first step is to rid themselves of the preconception that women control frame by default. 2, never under pain of death, honestly or dishonestly reveal the number of women you've slept with or explain any detail of your sexual experiences with them to a current lover. Well, I guess that depends on your relationship. I promote be honest with if you're Orthodox, you're getting married, just be honest. Both parties be honest with each other. 3, any woman who makes you wait for sex or by her action implies she is making you wait for sex, the sex is never worth the wait. Totally disagree with that. If she's a good Christian or religious girl and she wants you to wait for sex, that's a good thing. Marry her. Number 4, never under any circumstance live with a woman you aren't married to or are not planning to marry within 6 months. True. I agree with that. 5, never allow a woman to be in control of the birth. The guy is an idiot for not wearing a condom and taking the responsibility for his action, even if he's led to believe that she's taking control of her okay. Well, I'm for having children, so not supporting number 5. Number 6, women are fundamentally incapable of loving a man in the way that a man expects to be loved by a woman. I don't know about that. Men want to believe that they can be happy, sexually satisfied, and appreciated and loved and respected by a woman for who he is. It is men who are the real romantics, not women. Okay. 7, it is always time and effort better spent developing relations with new, fresh, prospective women than it will ever be in attempting to reconstruct a failed relationship. Always let a woman figure out why she won't F you. Never do it for her. Never seriously self-deprecate with a woman you intend to be intimate with. Okay. And then these last 2, mythology. The real test for a man is how he lives with himself alone. The man who is comfortable with himself and confident in his true independence is the one that women will want to be associated with and share in it. I can agree with that. No self-interested man is ever going to be encountered to refute the idea that women are equally preoccupied with, equally aroused as, or equally desirous of sex as men are. Women place importance upon looks according to their phase of life. The priorities and importance of characteristics that women will consider prerequisites for intimacy shift as their lives conditions dictate. A muscular athletic build has always been the masculine standard. Game and a positive masculine mindset are vital elements for your attractiveness and well-being, but they won't make you look any better with your shirt off. feminine imperative. For one gender to realize their sexual imperative, the other must sacrifice their own. This is the root source of power and feminine imperatives, use to establish its own reality as the normative one. Nothing is more threatening yet simultaneously attractive to women than a man who is aware of his own value to women. Women don't want a man to cheat, but they love a man who could cheat. Okay. Well, that basically that finishes the stream. That concludes what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, guys, is that the resurrection of boundaries. What is the manosphere? The manosphere is really the subconscious rise in the idea that we need to defend boundaries and masculinity needs to reclaim itself in society so that order can become a standard. And I don't disagree with many of the qualms the manosphere points out, but I disagree with its prescriptions. Ultimately, it has to do with following God. And so that's going to begin and sort of kick off my Orthodox crusade on the manosphere. You're going to be seeing many debates in the near future with many of the manosphere heads, whether it be Alex PWF, Rollo Tomasi, John Anthony Lifestyle, and so on. I hope to get eventually on the Pearly podcast or whatever podcast, anything I can do. I want to start promoting an Orthodox framework for what it means to be a man and what masculinity is in an Orthodox context, and it's always associated with God, which is exactly what they're missing. So guys, smash that like. I want to give a special shout out to Gen Z Philosophy, Sam Vagyak, Frankie D. Thank you so much, Frankie D, the big supporter of today's stream. Shout out to Frankie D. Thank you so much, brother. Shout out to Amptown 1, and shout out to Dr. Vagisil. And with that being said, guys, I think that's going to do it. I will be back Thursday with another stream with George Bruno, actually Orthodox convert, I believe, content creator in the manosphere. So George Bruno will be on Thursday, and make sure to catch me on Jay Dyer's channel sometime this week or next, discussing what is the red pill. So I will see you all then. And as always, until next time, God bless.